This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to the Glazov gang. Tonight, Ari David, me, am sitting in for Jamie Glazov yet again. And that's a good thing for you in the audience, so welcome to the show. Tonight, Mark Christian of the Global Faith Initiative is with us, and he's going to be talking about the latest article that he wrote about the influence of the Islamic Society of North America on American mosques. So, Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me over. And it is Global Faith Institute, not Initiative. You know,
Global
there is
Faith
something called
Institute.
Initiative over here. It's different. So.
Okay, my apologies. I'm, Jamie's the real expert. I'm just filling in. I don't know what I'm doing here, but anyway, we'll get this right. So, Mark, you wrote a fascinating article that I read a couple days ago about the influence of ISNA in American mosques. Can you give an overview about what your point in the article was and why this is important for people to know?
I wrote this article to highlight the importance of mosques in the United States and America, and the influence the mosques has on the youth and the Muslim population in general. And it is a very hard topic to even raise, because America cherished the freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and nobody can even challenge the religious institution in general. But I was just highlighting, the importance of, looking into the Islamic Society of North America and its role in the rise of recruiting of jihadists and terrorists throughout the country and in all states. And I was talking about the different incidents of terrorism that happen on the American soil, and the relationship between all those terrorists and the Islamic Society mosques. And and it is fascinating and quite disturbing at the same time to see that most, and I would say almost 99% of the terrorist attacks held by people that were in attendance or regular attendance of Islamic Society mosques in America.
And there was a point in your article about the differentiation between mosques that fell under the ISNA umbrella versus, I think, what you called mom and pop mosques, or small religious congregations that are not associated with ISNA, and that they had a much lower, if very close to zero or non-existent, relationship to incidents of violence and terrorism.
Let us clear this out in the very beginning, before delving into this topic. I am not referring to Islamic Society North America mosques or Islamic Society mosques as a different kind of religion or different kind of Islam, because the biggest mistake the people in the West fall in when they try to test the religion of Islam by their own experience and life experience with their own religion, whether Judaism or Christianity. Islam is a completely different from any sort of Christian, denomination or Jewish affiliation. You can see that there is like four major, Jewish, synagogues and affiliations, whether you are Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox or conservative or Reformed, and they're completely different from each other in the way they practice their own faith and witness their own holidays and so forth. And in Christianity, the same way, we have more than 400 different denominations of churches in America. And every church is different. Everybody says, I go to this church, and this means that it's completely different from the other guys. Catholics are different from the Lutherans, and both are completely different from the Protestant in general, or affiliation and so forth. And this is completely different with Islam. Islam is a very centralized religion. And it is not based on kind of different denomination whatsoever. As a matter of fact, Islam does not allow this kind of diversity into kind of different thoughts. There is, there is Sunni and Shia, and the difference between both is based on some political kind of agenda and political kind of, disagreements with each other. But if you look at the core, the Quran is the only book of Islam. And the only way to interpret the Quran is not by any mosque or any kind of imam can do that. It is only few people that is in the early ages of Islam that produced some books that document how Muhammad and his first followers of Islam, really interpret the Quran and talk about Islam. So, saying all of that, we have only one religion, that is Islam. It is not, fall into kind of reform. It's not allowing any kind of personal interpretation of any of the teachings of Islam. Nobody can do that in Islam. And this is something that we need to raise very well. So what am I talking about? Why Islamic Society of North America are different mosques? The reality of things is Islamic Society of North America is very well funded. And they are coming with imams that are completely independent. And they are very wealthy. And when they are very wealthy, they are able to run programs, to reach out to the community, and the imams has more reach out, and even not only the imam, but the board and other people within the mosque of Islamic Society of North America, they have an outreach to the Muslims outside. And what they do is they kind of enrich the community that they are in with the Islamic theology and teachings, and try to resurrect the spirit of Islam into the youth. And one thing happens after that, people become more devout. And the biggest problem that we deal with when we are dealing with Islam, in any other religion, we like people to be more religious, because when people get more religious, they get more spiritual and maybe better serving in community. In Islam, when people become devout, this is exactly the term that we give to the Muslims who are radical. And this is why I am raising awareness about the Muslim Brotherhood affiliation mosques in America, which is what Islamic Society of North America is.
Very interesting. As a friend of mine once said, it's reiterating your point, it's not that there are different parts of Islam. Islam is Islam, and that's it.
People need to get this background. People need to understand what they are dealing with, and again, it's the biggest mistake that, in a normal human nature, we test others by our own experience. But when it comes to Islam, we need to be very, aware of, we cannot do the same thing, with Islam.
I understand. Do you even consider Islam religion, being that it's devoid of the interpretable component that every other religion in the world has for its adherents, because it's more of a geopolitical movement with a political arm and a set of strict jurisprudence that's, again, uninterpretable, so that the faith-based component of it is actually quite secondary to the enforcement arms of it?
To answer your question, you have to come to the classes that I put together, and they are actually 10 sessions about Islam. Because to answer your question, have a simple answer to it, you have to understand the history of Islam. And you have to understand where Islam came from, and who is the founder of Islam, and so forth. But I'm not gonna torture you to come to my classes. I'm trying to give you as quick answer as much as I can. And by the way, I'm trying right now working on put those classes on DVDs, so they can be a good resource for people out there to understand more about Islam and history. And there is a whole bunch of the church history and Islamic history and all the kind of stuff. But the conclusion that you will come out after watching those DVDs or learning those sessions and so forth, you will come up with the conclusion that Islam, is not a religion. And I'm saying this, and some people might be shocked, but not people that watch Jamie Glazov. But in reality, really, Islam is not a religion. Islam is a political movement that used religion and used the spiritual aspect of people and talking about God to further its agenda from day one. And you can see, in the life of Muhammad in the last 11 years of his life, basically he was really about building his empire, his Islamic empire. And then the rituals of Islam, the teachings of Islam, the pillars of Islam came along as he goes on to fundamentally strengthen his own Islamic state and further it on more and recruit more people into it. And to understand what I just said, you have to really understand the history of Islam and to go into the steps. Islam is based on 5 pillars. And you can see that the first pillar came in as a pledge of allegiance to the Islamic State, not to become a spiritual person, which is the Shahada. In Muslims has to say that Allah is the God and Muhammad his prophet. They are really pledging allegiance to God to be their God, Allah to be their God, and Muhammad to be their leader, their top spiritual and political leader. and on and on and on and on.
Yes. Well, I hate to interrupt you, but we're almost out of time. Mark Christian from the Global Faith Institute, thank you so much. I would never consider any of your lessons torture at all. They sound absolutely fascinating. I'd be more than willing to sit through whatever curriculum you have to educate both myself and the world more on this very important topic. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Glazov Gang. And for you out in the audience, we need your support. So please go to jamieglazov.com and help us with the show, with our crowdfunding efforts. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Glazov Gang on YouTube. I'm Ari David, filling in for Jamie Glazov tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.